My name is Ken Rounds. We have a farm up in the Elmville area, and I'm going to tell you a short little story just to let you know how we got into solar. Like Jeff mentioned, we met each other in Allison a few years back at the wind conference that the Nottawasaga Futures put on, and we were both actually pretty excited about wind at that time. My wife and I got invited to go and speak in Alberta because we had a farm market, so we were selling directly to the farm public, and we got asked to go and speak at some conference out there. And she wanted to stay at a bed and breakfast, and we stayed at a farm outside of Calgary, and we were sitting there at the breakfast table first thing in the morning, and we looked at the front window, and there's an oil well pumping on the guy's home quarter. And we got talking about it, and he was in his 70s, and he says, you know, my grandfather bought this property in 1911, and we got oil rights, and we got 15% royalty on every barrel of oil that gets pumped out of there. So over the years, when cattle prices have been up and down, and grain prices have been up and down, the oil well has been like this, just pumping it in, and it's been steady income. And my wife and I left there, and we said, you know what, we need to figure out a way to get an oil well on our farm. And I think that's probably when we got looking at wind. That's when we got looking at solar, because we got saying there's got to be a way to get some passive income stream where we can level out the ups and downs of the commodities and the markets and the volatility we regularly deal with. So that's a little bit of history how we got started. I'm a little bit of an analytical guy. In other words, when the Green Energy Act came out in February the 23rd, 2009, by March I was already on the computer looking up companies that make trackers all over the world. There was 285 companies that make trackers at that time, and I was trying to find out which ones would work in Canada for our wind, for our snow load issues, for these kind of things. And I seriously did our crop seeding and stuff, but by the time July hit, I'd been given a price by one solar company for $95,000 to build our first solar project, and it was just a fixed system. And 2 weeks later, they came back and said, hey, we got a good deal on sharp panels. They don't make them anymore, this model. We can give them to you for $85,000. I'm going, that's not bad. 3 weeks, $10,000 cheaper. And should I be buying panels they don't make anymore? Is that a good deal or not? And then I got talking to this company in Kitchener, Canadian Solar, and they said, well, you shouldn't be building a system for any more than $7 per watt. I'm going, okay, so now it's like 2 weeks later again, I just saved $25,000 on my system. I need to learn some more about this. I need to really understand this, and my background is in engineering, and so I got to work and did a little bit of work. We bought our first system in July of 2009. After we ran into lots of political things because we were one of the first systems built in Simcoe County, we actually got it hooked up on April 1st of last year. We're running at 97% of what the projected numbers were, so we're just slightly below. We had a lot more snow this winter than what we expected to have. Our roof mount system, we built 3 systems on the farm. The second one was a roof mount system near Stayner. That one, I don't know if you know much about the snowfall in Collingwood this year, but we had about 3 feet of snow sitting on that roof for close to 2 months. So you know what our solar production was for the month of halfway through December right till almost February. We had 1 week there, the first week in January, where it cleared off. So we made $67 on that month, on that roof for the month of December, and $33 for the month of January. So not a whole lot of production, but when it's much like what Matthew said, when we do our projections, we expected we could afford to have, and the winter's not when the big sun is anyway, right? You got a lot less sun hours, so when you factor it out and you look at your big sun hours in the summertime, that's when we sort of look at it. So right now we're running, because we didn't get that one hooked up until August 19th of last year, we're actually running 24% behind what we should be. But on our other one, we were running 21% ahead by last April. So this is how it works out. You work with averages, and just like growing a crop. You can't project what your yield's going to be from one year to the next. It all depends on the weather. So, you know what, as long as you're comfortable with the averages, and going back to what both Todd and Matthew said this morning, I really appreciate what they said, because it's really about making sure that people are conservative, and that's what Jeff said too. Conservative with your numbers when you go to the bank. So we have a tracking system. We got hooked up in April 19th last year. It's running about 45% ahead of our roof mount in production. Actually, right now it's 52% ahead, but it was running 45% ahead. So it just did the numbers last week. It's actually 52% ahead of what my roof mount is. One of the big reasons is because of snow on the roof. It didn't get any snow on it when the tractors are dumping themselves. So I'm 52% ahead of production on the tracker. We have a large roof mount going up on Highway 27 here. We're working with a friend of ours, Keith Wardlaw. We're putting a 150 kilowatt fit project up there, and you've probably seen there's some new barns being built. Those 3 barns will have 50 kilowatts each on the roof, and that project we're hoping to be building by June to September. And we've got an application in for our 5th system, which is a 250 kilowatt system. We're building a new barn on our farm. And when you have 2 systems on a farm, one has to be fit, one can be microfit, as long as your microfit is 64.2 cents. If you have an 80.2 cent contract on the ground, you can't build a large roof mount unless you cancel that contract, which is what I had to do. So I actually terminated my one system about a month ago, and now applied for a new ground mount on that property. So that's a little bit about what we've done. We got pretty excited about this. My son-in-law, not a farm boy, just got married 2 years ago to my daughter, and we were kind of hoping to have them be on the farm. Wasn't interested in the farm, but he says, you know, I'm kind of interested in this solar thing. So by August of 2009, we had a little family business spring up. We started building solar projects around the province. And so far, we've installed a little over 300 microfit projects, 200 and probably about 270, 280 are tracking systems, because people look at the money that's coming in off the trackers. My biggest caution there is tracking systems are like big kites. They're going to catch wind. And the biggest enemy for a tracking system is wind. So what Jeff had said here, and I've seen the Western Mechanical tracker, good trackers. Just make sure that you've got good wind speed ratings. That's probably the biggest thing to be careful of. Ron's question earlier, can you build your own system? We got guys who are building their own fixed systems, and we maybe supply some parts just for them to connect the panels. And there's some things like just similar metals that you need to be careful of. We're putting aluminum on steel. You need to make sure that you take those things into consideration a bit. When we're building our new system, we've actually set a different company up on our farm. CRA has also changed the rules on taxation. Just make sure you talk to your accountant. The rules are quite simple. You're not supposed to be generating any more than 10% of the income coming off your farm should be from your solar project. More than that, and you might want to consider setting up a solar company that's your solar energy company limited. We've done that on our home farm with our 250 kilowatt project. We've already got the company set up. Because there's another factor here. If the farm owns that project and more than 10% of your asset base is in solar, you no longer qualify for your capital gains exemption. So there's some fairly significant rules here, because the government's okay with farmers becoming energy farmers, but they're not okay with us taking advantage of our tax system too much. They still want us to be farmers primarily. And so there's some tax rules you need to check into. So those are a couple learning points for me. We're pretty excited. I think just one thing on pricing. A lot of these companies coming in building panels in Ontario now, prices are running between 15 and 20% higher than what the prices of panels were prior to Ontario made panels. There's only a handful of companies right now that are manufacturing here. But we do see, like what Matthew said, probably in 6 to 8 months, we'll see as more competition comes into Ontario, the prices of panels will come down again. But right now is a really good time to be in. And someone just said about return on investment. Where else can you lock in for 20 years and get a guaranteed investment, return on investment, and get it locked in? Even if the technology improves for the next 5 years, you wouldn't even be able to afford to pay it and go and put it on the roof if you give up the prices that we got right now. Just a question on pricing. This is one of the things I had to learn early on. And the way the solar industry prices is they price per DC watt. So a 10 kilowatt system, if your price is $90,000 and it's a 10 kilowatt system, what you do is you figure, well, how many panels are on there? So it's 11.7 kilowatts of panels. So you take 90,000 divided by 11,700 watts on the DC side, will give you a price of around $8.17. Okay? So that's your price per DC watt, and that's how the solar industry prices. On rooftop, you're going to expect it to be a lot cheaper because you don't have the pedestals, you don't have all the moving parts, and they're going to be around $6, $6.50. The big systems, you get into the big fit ones, they'll go down as low as $4.60. So it basically goes from probably around $8 a watt all the way down to like $4.60 a watt, depending on the size of the system. Right? But again, you got to see what kind of components, what kind of inverters are you using. Some inverters are more expensive than others, and that's where you get your price variations.